Good evening. The time is now 6:07, and I will call to order this hybrid public meeting. It is September 4th, 2024. My name is Julie Bond, and I am the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. Regular meetings and public hearings of the Clark County Historic Preservation Commission are held in hybrid format and with both in-person and virtual participation options for commissioners, staff, and the public. This will allow for safe participation by commission members, staff, and any citizen interested in attending. For those of you joining remotely via computer, you should be able to see tonight's meeting agenda on your screen. If you can't see the screen and have joined by phone only, I will be announcing the agenda items as we move through the meeting topics. Members of the public and applicants that have joined remotely are attendees. Other event participants cannot hear your audio unless you are acknowledged by the commission chair or staff and are unmuted. This evening's agenda is planned as follows. Roll call and introductions. We are removing the prior meeting notes for the next, we're postponing that until the next meeting. Public comment for subjects other than the public hearing on this meeting's agenda, as there will be specific public comment periods as part of hearings. Updates from partner organizations, public hearing for the Columbia Building Certificate of Appropriateness, discussion of forming a work group to scan and index our current listings, budget discussion and conference attendance, our budget surplus uses, commission announcements and events, subcommittee updates and discussion, and then finally the go to the order and adjournment. We will now have a roll call of HPC members who are present for this meeting. Commission members, please say I'm here after I call your name. Jan Bader.
Here. Here.
She is here.
Yeah.
You have
Here.
I ask her to say here.
Say here one more time, Jan. Apologies.
Here.
Thank you. Morgan Fraser.
Here.
Andy Gregg.
I'm here.
Elaine Thatcher.
I'm here.
John Zingali.
Here.
And I'm here, Julie Bond. We have the August 7th meeting notes to approve will be coming through after this meeting. So we will take comment on that at our next meeting in October. So we're going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is public comment. We will now take public comment on any items outside of public hearing items. We'll begin with attendees in the room. If any, please approach the microphone if you would like to make a comment. Okay, and then we will now take public comment from online attendees. Susan, do we have any online?
Do not have any online attendees.
Okay, thank you. The next item is partner updates. We'll now hear any updates from partner organizations. We'll begin with our regular update from the Historic Trust, and I will turn the mic over to Holly Chamberlain.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. I have some updates from the Historic Trust. My name is Holly Chamberlain. At Providence Academy, the preliminary report summarizing the results of archaeological excavations related to the Academy landscaping project has been submitted to DAP. An original chapel pew, which had been in the keeping of Fort Vancouver National Historic Site, has been transferred to the Historic Trust. Repair and restoration work has been completed, and the pew has been returned to the Academy. Jessica Ingeman of Continuum Preservation Consulting has been selected as project manager for the South Landscape renovation and Bremick Construction as the contractor. At Officers Row and Environs, the summer outdoor preservation work is beginning to wind down for the season. One exception, however, is the repair of exterior tiles at the Red Cross building's porches, and that will begin next week. August was a very heavy wedding month in all the event venues. The rentals included a week-long youth film camp, which returned for a second year to the artillery barracks. Staff projects of the moment include creating 2025 budgets and work plans. The preservation crew is inventorying tools, equipment, and vehicles. Intensive comments for the second formal draft of the IBR programmatic agreement governing mitigation are being developed and will be submitted on September 9th. The public is cordially invited to the 175th birthday party for the Grant House on Saturday, September 14th from 1 to 4 p.m. at 1101 Officers Row. The free event at the 1849 building features lawn games, visits from President Grant, performances for children, arts and crafts, and refreshments. The Columbia Play Project will close out the Trust's 2024 Summerfest with a fun, free, family-oriented afternoon of hands-on activities outdoors at the Artillery Barracks on Saturday, September 28th from 1 to 4 p.m. Artillery Barracks is located at 600 Hathaway Road. Join the Trust for a Humanities Washington performance and lecture on folk singer Woody Guthrie, presented by historian and musician Joel Underwood. Guthrie spent a month in 1941 traveling along the Columbia River and writing songs for the Bonneville Power Administration. The free program, That Ribbon of Highway, Woody Guthrie in the Pacific Northwest, is set for Monday, September 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Red Cross Building at 605 Barnes Street. The 36th Annual Low Legacy Veterans Day Parade is coming up on November 11th, 11 a.m. at the Fort Vancouver National Site. You can find information on signing up to march in the parade at the Trust's website, www.thehistorictrust.org. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Holly. Are there any other partner updates online where we're?
Do not have any other partners online.
Okay, thank you. We will now move to the next item of business with new business for our public hearing, certificate of appropriateness, the Columbia Building doorway alteration at 110 to 112 East Evergreen Boulevard in Vancouver, Washington. I will open this hybrid online public hearing for a certificate of appropriateness application for proposed alterations to a doorway at the Columbia Building. The steps involved in the hearing process are shown on the slides. Do any commission members have any ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest?
This is Jan.
No.
So my
Thank you.
husband and I are clients of.
Would the applicant like to provide any additional testimony? Yeah, following the script, but I think we skipped something. Oh, I did. I'm sorry. Apologies. Let me back up. Yes.
I believe Commissioner Bader wanted to respond to your request.
Okay.
Conflict.
So-
Okay. Go ahead, Jen.
Not sure why this isn't, you can't hear me, but my husband and I are clients of Todd Stryker, who is one of the owners of this building. So we haven't talked to him about the building, but we are clients of his.
Thank you. All right. City of Vancouver staff will now give a summary of the staff report and recommendations. Turn it over to Mark Person, who will make the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chair Bond. Mark Person here, Senior Planner of the City of Vancouver. The Commission may recall we had an early feedback session in April of this year on this topic, where Jill Stryker came in and talked about the proposal here. So we're coming back with some additional information and a staff report for Commission review. As you stated, this is the Columbian Building, located at the corner of Evergreen Boulevard and Broadway Street. And the applicant has requested a certificate of appropriateness to move one of the doorways. It's quite deep, move it forward toward the facade of the building and the right of way, approximately 43 inches. This building, Columbian Building, was placed on the Clark County Heritage Register in 2005. The historic name is the Columbian Building, and I think the adjacent building This was Storm King. It's also referred to as that. Under Vancouver ordinance, the Clark County Historic Preservation Commission has a responsibility for reviewing matters of historic preservation within the city of Vancouver. Since this is on the local register, any changes to those properties require review and a certificate of appropriateness. I've copied the statement of significance from the 2005 nomination in the staff report, as well as the physical description of the building. Per the Clark County Historic Preservation Commission's rules and guidelines, the design and review criteria those of the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. Those begin on page 5 of my staff report. I won't go through these one by one, but most of them deal with changing of use, which this is not, and are not applicable to this request. So based on staff's review, staff is recommending that the commission approve the change to the doorway. And I should note, if the commission doesn't recall, moving the doorway forward, it appears would match the depth of the other entries to the building. And we do have Jill Stryker here tonight, the applicant, to answer any additional questions that you may have. I have the nomination form from 2005, some exterior photos, and then Exhibit 4 is the existing and proposed floor plan. They're very close. When the applicant emailed them to me, I said, this looks like the same, but then she pointed out that it is not quite. It is moved. And I did indicate to the applicant that the stairway will have to move too, and that will need a building permit through our building plans, our building department, to make sure that the required landing space is met at that location. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on the staff report.
Do any commissioners have questions for Mark? Okay.
Unmute yourself.
Commissioner Frazier, I think that because we've already had a discussion about this certificate of appropriateness with the staff, I have no questions.
I guess I just one point of clarification as I look at this, because you said the stairs. Oh, I am unmuted. Yeah. Sorry. It looks like we're probably getting rid of one step maybe, and then so that we can make sure that the landing's there, but looks like it'll still have to meet all the code requirements and everything. So
It will, Commissioner. Yes, our
Yeah.
building folks will look at that for access requirements. Stair, tread.
right, and I remember discussing. I think there's another entrance that's already a ramp, like there's no stairs, so we're not doing anything with that, which is
Correct.
great. So
Right.
perfect.
I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you because the people online are probably kind of difficulty listening. We have to be really careful to only unmute one person at a time, or there's going to be a lot of feedback for the people online. Sorry if we didn't make that clear.
And try to identify yourself if it's been a while since you've spoken. Thank you.
And Morgan, I remember in April, I passed around a photo of the building, and the steps were completely different than they are now. So that whole entrance, besides the depth, is not the original entrance. I believe the glass is.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was looking at the plans correctly between like the count, my own count of stairs. That's all.
And I guess that would be my only question is what's the plan for, are we just cutting the glass and using the historic glass and just repurposing it, or are we going brand new? I do have that question.
So Mark, I don't know if you can answer those questions after you. I was going to invite the applicant to come forward if they would like to provide any additional testimony or answer questions from the commission. Come on up. Yeah, there's a space for you here.
Jill Stryker, can you hear me? Okay, and the question was,
Commissioner Frazier, the question was, what was the plan for the existing glass?
what we're hoping, we have not had the architect actually go through it because we wanted to make sure it was feasible, is we'll keep the same glass, not even actually remove it, but just make a frame that makes it look right. So probably just match the existing molding and have it actually come down.
So
Thank you.
just as a follow-up, just so I visualize it, this makes sense to me. So the glass will still exist, it'll just be moved forward, so the glass will actually exist on both sides of the door.
Yeah, the glass
Okay.
itself will stay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
There'll just be a molding that divides it to match the door.
Okay.
There. The only other thing that will change a little bit is the handrail. It will just be shortened, but again, we'll use the same handrail.
And just to confirm, I think it's pretty clear, but the building itself will not be damaged in any way. Like the
I
building will
hope not,
still
with all
be, because that's the part that we're reviewing,
No,
right?
the-
Is to ensure that the building doesn't lose any of its.
No, it will actually honestly look better when it's done because it'll be consistent with the other. Oh, I didn't unmute, did I? I'm not good. Because it'll be, if you look at the picture, it'll be consistent with what you're looking at there. I mean, that's the whole goal, to make it more like the other doorways and look like it belongs instead of the tunnel effect.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
Yes, this is Commissioner Thatcher. I have a quick question about the stair relocation. Is there a plan to just basically pour more concrete and move it out? Or will those steps be removed by jackhammer and re-poured?
Well, our hope is that it'll just be an extension. But again, whatever we can do to make it look like it hasn't been remodeled is what we'll do. And we have to get the plan for that, which will have to go through the city. But I believe we're going to be able just to extend it and do new steps.
Excellent, thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions? I'm going to look on the camera. Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We will now open the public comment period related specifically to this certificate of appropriateness. Please note that if you wish to retain the ability to be a party of record on this matter or to challenge or defend any decision made on this matter, please state and spell your name and provide your mailing address or email address for the record. Should I continue, or do we have anyone online who would like to make a comment?
Do not have anyone.
Okay.
online.
So if it's okay with you, I will move on. Is that all right? Okay. The public hearing is now closed. The commission will now deliberate. The commission must make findings that either agree with staff's findings on each criterion or make specific comments on any finding. So the floor is open for discussion. And just to help me make sure I mute myself when people are going to talk, just maybe give me a wave or something.
Commissioner Thatcher here. I went and reviewed not just this building, but the other buildings on the street. And in general, the movement of the door would still, we're not removing the door, we're not making it flush, so it would still hold its interpretive background, its history with the movement, I believe. However, my concern is with the fact that we don't have a plan for how the steps are going to be relocated. And if it would be a jackhammer removal situation, there, it is a historic building. This is historic glass. There's already parts of the exterior of the building that need repair. And I'm concerned that removing the steps and putting in new ones would cause additional damage to the building.
Are the stairs part of this appropriate certificate of appropriateness?
I mean, yes, I believe it would be under the commission's review.
Sorry, Mark. Did I understand you correctly? Are you saying that in the nomination, the stairs were mentioned as part of a significant? I didn't read that, so I wasn't sure if that's what you're saying.
No, but I believe the alteration of the stairs is within the, condition, excuse me, certificate of appropriateness. Yeah, I mean, similar to, I mean, many of you might recall, we went through this with the museum, right? Those stairs got changed. So those are obviously more prominent than this, but I think we came before this body for a certificate of appropriateness just to change the doorway there as well and stairs.
Yes, she's okay to speak to that, correct?
I don't know. We've ended the public hearing. Yeah, we closed the public hearing. But usually we can. Yeah. Yes, please go ahead and come back up.
We will not damage the building. I mean, that's the intention. And you said there's some other damage done on the building. Are you, as a result of the sidewalk that the city replaced is where the damage came from? So if on one of the things we will do when if we're fortunate enough to move this forward, is at the same time correct the damage that was done to the building, not as a result of anything we've done, because we will do our best. Costs us money, plus we love the building, is why we're taking care of it. And so, and I do believe, I can't see any reason why you would take out the cement rather than bring it forward and then lay something on top. But again, we would go through the plans, have those available as to show that we would do it correctly.
I also think that we could, in our,
Sorry.
Commissioner Frazier, I think that the applicant is very passionate about preserving their building. I don't think that any intentional harm will come to the building. But maybe this would be an appropriate place to have a monitor in place if the demolition of the stairs was inevitable, because that's not what we want, right? It's also a historic building. It's a historic block. Once you start jackhammering, you could find who knows what. So it might be a situation where you just have a monitor on board to kind of keep things under control. I do that a lot in my business, and I work with a lot of people just like yourself who are really passionate about their building or their archaeological site. So I think there are ways around it, but I really respect your bringing that forward, because I hadn't thought about the potential damage.
Commissioners and Galley, I just appreciate the respect for the building and everything. And I just, from my observations too, it looks like on that bottom layer where the sidewalk is, there does look like there's room, hopefully, to just maybe pour and not have to it's almost like you're putting on top, and not have to touch the structural integrity of that. And obviously that's best case scenario for everyone. And so I appreciate the thought process with all of that to make sure we still have the proper landings and everything to match that. But it's a great block, and I think, as other commissioners have pointed out, I think it would create more cohesion and consistency with the other door openings and things on the building. Thank you.
Yes. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Vaughn. Commissioner Thatcher here. I do appreciate that the, forgot the word, that the Stanger, not Stangers. What? Yes, I do appreciate that this building has such a devotion from the community and its owners. As there isn't a plan in place right now that would, we haven't met with the contractors. We don't know 100% that we will be able to do the pour over, which it sounds like from everyone's viewpoint is the preferred method if it is available. If this is granted the certificate of appropriateness, I would like to have a caveat, sorry, my words are done for the day, added to it that a monitor and a backup plan be added so that the monitor can ensure that things don't get out of hand. And if, heaven forbid, something does happen, there's a plan in place to restore that portion.
I was also going to ask if anyone online, Jen, I know you're the commissioner online. I don't know if you have any comments. Don't want to neglect you. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, for my part, I will just say, yeah, I think that, it's a very straightforward plan. I think they've taken into account the different impacts that it could potentially have. And I was happy to hear that the glass won't be taken out, that the glass will be kept. The door, again, there's that continuity. It also solves some of the problems you've been experiencing as a homeowner in that area, which I think will also just make the whole entire street seem more in line with the atmosphere that we want to have downtown. So I personally, after, the previous review and then hearing this review again, it's clear that you care about this building and want to do the best thing for the building. So I have personally no issues with this proposal. Sounds like for the most part, all of us have had an opportunity to comment. So if anyone else doesn't have any more comment, I can accept a motion to approve this certificate of appropriateness. And if so, please state your name when making a motion, and we'll need a second.
I move that we approve the certificate of appropriateness. It's Andy Gregg.
I, Commissioner Thatcher, second this with the caveat that a monitor or monitor needs to be provided if there is going to be demolition of the steps first, and a backup plan be put in place should damage be done.
Here we go. I move that we approve this certificate of appropriateness with Commissioner Thatcher's caveat from Andy Gregg.
This is Commissioner Frazier. I'll second that.
Okay. Okay, so for the record, Andy Gregg makes the motion as follows: to approve the certificate of appropriateness while adding in the requirement to include a monitor to ensure that if damage is done, unforeseen damage is done, that there's a mitigating plan afterwards to address any issues that happen during that time, if it's the worst case scenario. And Morgan Frazier seconded that motion. Susan, can you please take a roll call vote to approve the motion?
Chair Bond,
Aye.
Vice Chair Thatcher,
Aye.
Bader,
Aye.
could you repeat that one more time?
Yes. Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Frazier,
Aye.
Commissioner Gregg,
Aye.
Commissioner Zingali.
Aye.
6 ayes,
Okay.
no nays.
Thank you, and the motion passes. Congratulations. We will now, it was a little clunky, but we're getting through it. We'll now move on to old business. First, Susan will provide an update on the budget, and we will discuss conference attendance and registration status.
Okay, this is Susan, and on the screen, Maria Ryan from the city provided estimates of the cost for the Pass Forward Conference, which are estimated at about $6,500. And so, can't see, can you scroll down?
Yeah.
Okay, so the total funds available for other activities are about $4,200.
Great, thanks. Do you have any other unresolved conferences details that you need from us before we move on to talking about possible activities for the remaining budget? Or are we satisfied with everyone that, within all of participation for the year? I believe, as far as I know, that we are, but I don't know if you've heard from other commissioners.
So I guess I might throw that question to Commissioner Frazier and Commissioner Thatcher. So I believe that the only real unresolved costs would be Commissioner Frazier, if you know the cost of your airfare, that is estimated on, and I'm going to have Bart bring up the
Sheet.
yeah, the other sheet. So the cells shown in yellow are estimates. And so the cost of Commissioner Frazier's airfare and any transportation costs, which are somewhat hard to estimate, those are estimates based on last year's Pass Forward Conference, which was a completely different city. So, they're guesses, but
Okay, so just to explain, well, you brought it up. We had been, this is one thing that we actually should bring up for this year. There had been a portion of Pass Forward last year where they had, instead of being planned events that had transportation provided to them, there were too much desire for those. So they put it to the commissioners to cover it. And then Commissioner Mandler Huff and I shared cabs, and I happened to pay for more of the cabs than she did because I was faster with the credit card.
So this is just based on the passport.
Yep. Uh,
I think that the airfare was $600. But I don't have that off the top of my head. I don't know about the ground transportation, you know, besides to and from the airport, if that's going to be needed. But Maria said that that was all just going to go like an itemized thing. And
Yeah, we would. So for the transportation that hasn't been paid for, such as the flights, I'm unmuted. There, we just have to bring the receipts in, but they need an estimate for what it is. Two things that will impact pricing of transportation for this. Taylor Swift is playing that weekend in New Orleans, so cabs are going to be expensive if available at all. And it's Halloween as well. So we have Taylor Swift starting it and Halloween ending it. So yeah, it's going to be a little more expensive than normal.
would you think then if we estimated $300 each for transportation, that would be probably overshooting it, but
Well overshooting it. And John has his hand
Just,
up.
what were the dates? I can't remember.
October 27th through November something. Right.
So I would propose that we don't get too far. I think it's okay with what you guys have done. I think just so long as we know that nobody else plans on attending the other conferences that we had on the table. I know I've already responded, so I just wanted to make sure if we start planning this funding, we're not losing out on another conference. Go ahead, John.
I just used the magic device to actually look up what some might be. So if we flew, one person flies on September 28th through the 31st, just kind of ballparking that, into Louis Armstrong is the name of the airport. We're looking at maybe around, you know, there's 300 round trip on Delta with one stop, depending on some different things. It can get all the way up to 779, depending on, you know, when you're flying and some different things. But from what I see as low as well, we don't want Spirit. Like around 275 to, you know, there was Alaska is 550, but there's a bunch in that $300 to $400 range for round trip. If that helps.
So I didn't mean to take us down a rabbit hole there, but if you, I updated the spreadsheet with some increased costs for transportation and the estimated airfare. And if we figured about 3,500, yeah. So I updated, it brings us to, if we figured about $3,500 just to spend on other activities, I think we would be safe.
That's what I was hoping to get to was that bottom line.
Right.
Okay. Okay, great. So it sounds like no other conferences are of interest. So that is going to be our budget for the most part, as far as we know. Okay. So on our agenda, the next item is to discuss other activities that we could do with our budget. And I have not provided, I apologize. I had told staff that I would provide a couple of my own thoughts, and then I'd like to just open the floor for others. But I was hoping to focus any budget that we had left on some of the preservation activities that we had hoped to accomplish through our grant program as part of our phases. So the first, I have three specific proposals. One is to possibly hire someone, and I was thinking potentially someone on museum staff, if possible, to partner with them to help consolidate all of our survey information into one depository or mapping system, or at least begin that process so that we have, and then we could even identify certain milestones. If we are not able to fund the whole thing, we could have milestones that we could fund potentially. So we could do it incrementally if we needed to roll activities into the next year. The second one is, again, hire someone, again, potentially museum staff, to help us clean up our online listings. We have listings on our website, as we all know, but there's a lot of cleanup still needed. And then the third was potentially to host some outreach events, particularly within our overlay districts with our property owners and our tenants, and to just do some more direct outreach. And we could potentially use some of that budget for those items. So those are some thoughts. And the reason I proposed museum staff is because I think it would be fairly easy. We wouldn't have to necessarily do any kind of bidding. I think we could just partner with them and help pay for their staff time if they are able to work with us, if they have the time and ability. Does anyone else? I'm going to open the floor for anyone else's thoughts.
I love those ideas. I'm going to take this a different direction slightly, in the sense of, instead of hiring somebody from the museum, because I don't know if that's really feasible, how about we work with the museum and get an intern from WSU? Because the museum works hand in hand with Donna and her program at WSU. And that's how the museum gets a lot of help, is through interns. Because if we start thinking about paying a professional historian to do this kind of grunt work, you're talking about not very much, getting much done. But perhaps if we talked about getting an intern, and we gave the intern a stipend with some goals, that would be more feasible. And I know that the museum does have a handful of people that they work with, usually on a basis with Donna's program. We would get more bang for our buck with an intern, and I think that would actually help kind of focus some of the energy that we've been hoping to focus. I also like the idea of having an event in the overlay district. I think that there are some really great venues. Like, if no one's been to the Valiant Ballroom, you're missing out on that building altogether. It's a historic building in our overlay. It's a ballroom. I definitely would be open to doing some more outreach like that. I think that, and I've been saying this with the waterfront just coming and pushing and pushing and pushing, and the development just coming and bigger and bigger, pushing and pushing towards the little tiny overlay, that, it is time to rally the troops to say, hey, what do you really like about this overlay? And really, I've said this to you before, is bringing in Main Street. I really like to know more about how this sidewalk thing is really going to play in with the overlay district. And then there's, Washington on the other side that we're not doing anything with, but maybe we are. Maybe we're gonna make it a whole bike street just for Mark. I don't know.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with both Commissioner Zingali here. I love that idea, and I will know that I know WSU, like I had a student this summer who was a sophomore who was also working with them. So there is a chance to even maybe partner with WSU and their program to bring in other kids from across, like, the different school districts too, through something like that. So once again, you're doing that outreach into other, younger demographics and trying to promote, what we do here. So I think working with them to get some sort of internship set up with maybe like even a little mentorship process with some high schoolers or something. I think, from Evergreen, Battleground, and Vancouver would be remarkable. And then once again, I think the overlay, doing those outreach activities in that overlay is a great idea.
I also know a high school student who is more civically minded, my folks here, who is volunteering at the museum this year from the center.
So I would propose, it sounds like we have some great ideas, and I would almost propose that we create some kind of subcommittee to make a plan for this money, and then to explore, talk to the players that are out there, the museum, the WSU contacts, and see if we can get something underway. I guess, yeah, Jason. Go ahead.
Hi, hi, Jason Norris, City of Vancouver. So to that point, keeping in mind we need to have that money spent this year because it's considered a good. So to do it, form a subcommittee, do these things takes time, and we're in September. So I'm just,
Keeping us on track.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something, Susan?
I believe Commissioner Bader would like to make a comment.
Thank you for that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, sorry, and I'm not sure why you can't hear me. Of the things that you went over, to me, the most pressing thing we need to get done is we have a lot of historic register nominations that are in paper copies that need to be, digitized and hooked to the website, to the site that the nomination covers. So to me, that seems like just such a fundamental piece that we need to get done, that I would like to see us, as you said, partner with the museum, see if we can get an intern who can just, and that's boring work, but just get that digitization underway, because we're really missing a piece here when you look at our website and you discover more than half of our historic sites do not have their nomination available electronically.
Yeah, and Jen, you make a good, sorry, you make a good point. I skipped it on the agenda. I was going to go back to it. But we were also going to discuss possibly creating a work group to get training on indexing and archiving. I'm sorry, not archiving, indexing and scanning our nominations to help staff with that project. If it's a better option to hire a student, then we could do that too. I think that's why we need a subcommittee to kind of hash out some of the details on what we can potentially volunteer ourselves for. I know I'm happy to volunteer for that project. And what ones we think that we would actually need to find external actors to help us with. But I think we have some really great ideas. So do I have any takers to create a subcommittee or a subgroup? Yeah, Andy?
If you're going to do this, it needs to be fast.
Rather than creating another subcommittee, our existing outreach group might be the ideal vehicle for pursuing a greater interaction with these constituencies.
I think that's a great idea.
I mean, I think we already have a group without specific direction right now to take on this, and people who are interested in this kind of outreach there. And we could, of course, welcome additional members to take part, but I think we have the vehicle for this in place.
Commissioner Zingale, I'll just say, like, we were just trying to set up another outreach group get together, and this is actually the perfect kind of like driver to get us to do that. So I would second Commissioner Gregg's piece there, that at least the two of us, and I think there was talk of bringing in a third commissioner into that, can help get that going.
I think bringing a few more people on board would help expedite it, just because I think we need to, it is September 4th, and as Jason pointed out, we need a solid plan by our next meeting, right?
And provide some direction.
Right. So we just need to make sure that we have a solid plan and direction by the next meeting, and knowing that, there's only two of you. We don't want to overburden you, but if you do think that you can, handle it, but it sounds like you're open to another person.
Well, I, for one, would be happy to jump on the outreach committee, give a second pair of hands or a third pair of hands and brain to this. I promise mine will be functioning better than it is tonight. But yeah, we should definitely get jumping on that, schedule a meeting. And if we're looking to partner with WSU, there's probably some paperwork we'd have to fill out for stipend reasons. And as their term just started, getting that going sooner rather than later on their end would also probably be appreciated.
Andy, the only thing with the museum is we want to try to keep it with doing the work, not giving that to the historians to do the work, getting an intern to do the work, maybe having somebody from the museum help oversee the intern, right? But I think that we should really also focus that it's an intern, like a student intern, like a young person so we're bringing somebody on and not just paying the museum to do this important work. Because that'd be a whole nother thing. We'd write a grant for it. We'd get more money.
So it sounds like first we need to you guys will come up with which project to do, because there's several proposals, all of them partnering with either the museum and intern, but the different activities for the intern were proposed. So we'll just look to you guys for next meeting to tell us what the plan is. And we should also probably have the budget firmed up a bit too by then. So that will also give us an idea of how much the stipend could be. So we're on good track. All right. Any other comments? Oh, go ahead, Bart.
So just to put a bow on that conversation, thank you guys. I was thinking it would be good to have something concrete for the outreach committee to do. Thank you, Commissioner Thatcher. I just want to be clear on the expectation then that I will send an email to the three of you, Thatcher, Greg, and Zingali. We will set up a meeting, hopefully within the next week, sooner the better, depending on everybody's busy schedules. And then at that time, we will decide the order of operations for this, whether we reach out to the museum first or WSU contact. Who is Donna again, Commissioner Frazier?
Donna is the leading public historian here in Clark County, and she works at WSU. So she has a lot of students, and know that John probably is best friends with her.
All right.
This is
Great.
true. I know Donna personally for many, many years now. And so establishing a connection is pretty easy.
Okay, so we will do a non-public meeting series of emails between the four of us and set up a meeting within the next week. Thank you. That's all I wanted to ask.
Thank you. And one other thing just to keep in mind, all of the budget may need to be applied to a stipend, but we did talk about potentially doing some outreach activities with the overlay people. So just something to maybe see if we can incorporate that, or if that's just something for next year's budget, but don't want to lose that either. Okay, thank you. Yes, go ahead, Bart.
That was the other thing I wanted to mention from the earlier part of the conversation. That is, if anybody had a venue or an event that we wanted to participate in, that would be an easy thing where if we were going to set up a table and had some costs involved with that, that wouldn't be a contract or a bidding type of situation. We could just hold court somewhere. So I don't really have my finger on the pulse of that. You guys seem to have so feed us that information and we could do that in the next 6 weeks or something if you know of an event. And we can facilitate with resources and, a table and drinks and things like that.
Well, if we're just looking to like promote, once we figure out where the event might be, I think just maybe a volunteer or two. Esther Short Park on like the Saturdays, I mean, it's packed. And there's the free speech area where anyone can just go set up and, you can let people know about the event there too. And that's a lot of people that would probably come to an event like that if they're downtown already. And so just a thought process.
And I like all those ideas. I really like the idea of holding an event in a historic building, in the historic overlay, because I feel that the overlay is very precariously perched up, and it's up to the owners of the buildings in the overlay district, because many of them are not on our register, to understand some of the things that are out there for them, like the CPACER loans and other tax incentives, so that they can be looking forward to shoring up their buildings for earthquakes or whatever the next retrofit is coming through. Energy efficiency, I suspect. So I want to make sure that we focus on historic preservation of buildings.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, happy that you guys are championing this, but
Yeah,
that's, I
me
think,
too.
part of the big thing, which is educating, right? We want to educate these homeowners. We also want to mobilize them. We want them to be excited that they own properties within the overlay and that we want them to protect it. Yeah, yeah. So I think there's a lot of, more than just a social, it's really meant to have meat and bones, you know, something really substantive. Go ahead, John.
Just point of clarification, if we have something planned and things are put in motion before the end of the year, is that okay, or does all the money have to be spent? Has to be spent? Okay. All right.
We are very excited. All right, excellent. Thank you guys so much for volunteering and for taking that on. I'm going to go backwards a little bit. I apologize. I skipped over new business. So for new business, on one of our subcommittees, we were talking about, you know, our need, and I've had conversations with various people about the need, and Jan brought this up, to get our listings online cleaned up and accessible for everyone. And that project has been ongoing, and it just needs more hands, I think, to help with that effort. There's some indexing. I'm not sure what all this means, but I know there's some indexing that's needed and some scanning that's needed off of this offsite, because there are certain security measures on site that we don't have access to. So we wanted to see if there were people on the commission who'd volunteer their time to do like a mini lesson with Bart, or I believe with Bart, to understand how we index, what's needed, and then potentially get files that we could then also assist with scanning. So this may be news to Bart, this meeting. Susan was also part of this conversation. But we wanted to bring this up because the sooner we get it cleaned up, the better. And we're at a point on our website where we're getting to that. We're getting to our listings. And so this will be a big kind of help to that subgroup to get that portion of our website cleaned up.
I'm just a little bit confused between what we're thinking about the intern's going to do and what you're talking about right now, because I felt like we were talking about the intern doing what you're talking about right now. And so if we want to make sure the intern has enough work.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So that's why I was saying there's a couple things proposed. So that was one of the proposals if we didn't have a subgroup doing it. But what I was proposing in my little spiel was that they go through all of our surveys. We have years of surveys that are paper copy in the museum, that those surveys are out there, but we don't have them digitized. We don't have that information maybe on our mapping system. Some of those buildings may be gone now. Some buildings may be eligible, but we're not aware of those, you know, so consolidating all of that information so we know what has been done on all the different historical surveys. We can go to the museum and pull them out of their binders and read them, but there's nothing, as far as I understand it, that's accessible to everyone across all the years. So that's what I was thinking. But it doesn't have to be that. Whatever that group, that subgroup decides will be the best strategy. If this ends up being the strategy, then we don't need a working group. I don't really know what the extent of the project would be and how many people you guys would like, but I just know that talking through it, it's been delayed, and I think it would be nice if we could get some traction. So I personally would volunteer my time, would happy to be on that work group.
I've already volunteered.
Okay.
I mean,
Morgan?
these guys already
Yeah.
know. I'm just waiting for we're ready for you.
Right. Okay, cool. So there's 2 so far.
3.
Okay.
I was waving my hands, but I can also hit unmute.
And we could probably have more too, because we wouldn't actually be meeting individually, I don't think. I mean, as a group. Yeah.
Yeah, you.
No, that's great. Again, groups of 3 are best for the public meeting issues, because then we have more flexibility and can move quicker. I would like to back up just for Jan. I'm super sorry that you can't jump into the conversation normally. It's completely a function of the room that we're in. And if I don't mute the speaker that we have, when you're not talking, we get feedback. So we're watching your video, If you want to talk, please just use the raise hand function and we'll unmute for you, okay? I'm sorry it's clunky. Okay.
Thank you for that. Again, sorry, Jan.
I'm gonna jump in quickly. That's right. Why don't we wait like maybe 10 days on figuring out the archiving and file maintenance to see if when outreach meets, we decide that that is something we want to include in the intern thing. If not, we can have Bart reach out to everyone in the group and say, hey, we're doing other stuff with the interns. Let's see who wants to do the archiving.
One other thing about the surveys. If there's a list of surveys, historic surveys, I have access to the state database and mostly everything is digitized. If it goes to the state, it's digitized. Maybe if it sits in the county, I'm not sure. But a lot of county stuff goes to the state also, and they keep it and they scan it and it's already scanned, it's already ready to go. So perhaps maybe some lists might speed things up.
Yes. I think it takes more than just us talking about it here in the meeting, right? So we would need to actually, yeah, we would need to go to the museum and get that list of what's on paper copy to give to you to check. But even still, even if it's on the DAP website or what have you, or Wizard, it's not the database. It doesn't seem to be accessible to everyone. And maybe that's where we need a special workshop so that we can all find whatever we want to find in our inventories. Okay.
Wizard tutorial.
For the average person,
For
not
the
for someone
average
who
person
has your
or
professional credentials.
anybody else who wants a tutorial who hasn't figured out the clunkiness of it.
Okay. Go ahead, John.
Well, maybe that's something that should maybe go on the website is a little demonstration video for everyday people. It's our tutorial video, like I make for my students, like, hey, this is how you do that. Because if it is clunky, we want to make sure that our public has some sort of knowledge on how to do that. So if that's something that can be done, Morgan, that would be fantastic. Because using every different database is like different, right? And so
It is training. It is training. Commissioner Frazier.
I just want to check in on one thing because I'm not sure. So the county has several file cabinets full of inventories. Do you know that the museum also has inventories?
Yeah, I've seen them. I went there, I think last October-ish, and Brad and he was showing me various things that they have in their files, and there were several surveys there. And I think that's where we need kind of a cross-section team, people who have knowledge in different areas. So then we can, I think ultimately the goal for me, and perhaps maybe I need to make sure it's a goal for others, is to have transparency around what is in the county, what has been surveyed and has been deemed eligible, what's listed, what isn't listed but eligible. I mean, there's a lot of data out there, but I don't know where to go necessarily to grab that information quickly. And I feel like if I don't know, there's a lot of people who also don't know. And that would be the purpose, really. And if it's as simple as understanding Wizard, which I have looked at, it's not the platform I think I'm familiar with, perhaps. But anyway, there's some room for growth.
I would be happy to maybe before a meeting, come a half an hour early or something like that, and give a Wizard tutorial to anybody who was there.
So I just want to suggest maybe we include someone from the museum on the group, at least in an early meeting, so they can give us input on what's there. Because honestly, I didn't realize that there was additional information there.
Could be duplicates, but it is the hard copy, filled out forms, signatures, I mean, pen. So, yeah. Okay, so just to sum up, just so I make sure that I understand the effort, the subcommittee is going to discuss the different possibilities, including what we've just discussed. Bart will kind of inform this work group whether or not they need to be formed or not to do the indexing and scanning. based on whatever decision is made. If there is that need for a work group, Morgan, myself, and Elaine have volunteered ahead of time. So just let us know if we're going to be a group. And then on a sidebar to help inform any efforts that are done with inventories, I think we need to have some reconnaissance in terms of what's out there, what still needs to be done, if there's anything that needs to be done. And that means getting a list to Morgan of what we have in her copy of the museum. I'm happy to reach out to Brad, to Brad, and ask him, or go over to the museum and get that list. So we'll get that to you. Okay. All right, so that concludes new business.
Yes.
And old business. Thank you. All right, so now we are moving on to, bear with me. Okay, we will move on to commission announcements and events. The first item is for Bart regarding the HPG application period.
Can't hear you.
Thank you, Bart. The next item is for the whole commission. Are there any other announcements or event reminders that anyone would like to share? Go ahead.
All right, so there's a couple upcoming events that I think are interesting to us and relating to historic preservation. Holly Chamberlain mentioned one of them. Grant House's 175th birthday party is coming up. It is a free event. It's in our lovely area. There's free food. There's going to be games and activities. That is on Saturday, September 14th from 1 to 4 p.m. Also, weekends in October, the Pomeroy House is having festive weekends. There will be a pumpkin patch for the kids, but there's also going to be other historic and farm-related activities for anyone who is interested in attending. Saturday the 14th, yes, 1 to 4.
I don't know if they're actually a part of the overlay and stuff like that, but it's cool for me. The Washington School for the Deaf is actually having their grand opening ribbon cutting ceremony for their new buildings. That'll be interesting to see how they built around all the old structures and things like that, because that's been there for quite a while, to say the least. So, and that's this Thursday. I don't know that it's open to the public, but I know that they are having that event. So. No, sorry, the 12th, as in the 12th. Yeah, sorry. For clarification, I'm looking at the next week already. Yes. So I know just because I was personally invited to it, it's 1 to 3, but I don't know that it's open to the public. But we might be able to swing some things.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there any other announcements or events that people would like to make note of? It looks like we lost Jan. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to our subcommittee updates and any discussion items for that. We'll begin with our demolition. Actually, I apologize. It looks like we had discussed this. We will have a full update in October, but you're welcome to make a comment now if you would like. Otherwise, we can wait until October.
Yes, I do have a quick update. So I just want to clarify. I think we're talking about multiple things here as it relates to the demo process. I think the first one is the thing that Morgan and I are working on, which is to update the application process for buildings that are 50 years or older, requiring photo documentation. We are in the process. We've pretty much done that. We're just fine tuning the application form, and we're trying to determine who in our department is actually going to confirm the age, because it's not always right or accurate on for them. We've done some spot checking, and 9 times out of 10 it's fine, but in the event that it isn't, where do we go to confirm the age? And then we're also having to update our system because we're doing additional work which we're not charging for, so we're going to require an additional fee as part of our demo application process. So we're just updating that to cover staff time. And then how we are going to actually transfer those photos to Brad at the Historical Museum, because they've agreed to store those photos in perpetuity. So in the meantime, when demo applications come in, we do check the age, and if it is over 50 years, we're asking for photo documentation. We just are updating the actual application form to trigger the applicant to do that work, hopefully before they come in and apply for a demo permit. So we don't want to delay them in a pretty straightforward process. So the second thing is, yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick, are staff that are involved with demolition going to be trained or at least informed of this change, and that the expectation is that they're monitoring that and that there is this shift that they will need to kind of be aware of?
Yes, great question. Absolutely. So our permit team that would take in any other application that gets submitted, whether it's in person at the counter or virtually, are the ones that would do what we call a counter completeness check. So they have a checklist that they would cross-reference against the application form. They show the building's over 50 years old. We confirm that. Do they have photos? No. We kick the application back to them, submit photos before we process the application. So, yeah. And the second thing I know we want to talk about is the demo process as it relates to, for example, what the smokestack went through and potentially the Schofield building. I know there's been some discussion with that. We still have yet to have anything official come forward with that. So I've been working with our legal team to put together kind of a briefing memo for the benefit of all of you. And my hope was that we could provide that briefing memo to you in the form of, I guess, a staff report. I don't know if it's under business or what it's under, at an upcoming meeting, but I didn't want to do that too far in advance of, say, the Schofield building were to come forward. I want it to be like still fresh in your mind. So let's say that they come forward with an application in December, that we would meet in November to talk about how the demo application process works, what are the different kind of avenues it could go through, depending on if, for example, the building official determines it's unfit and orders it demolished, it goes through a different course of action if the applicant were to come forward just a standard demo application request for all of you, where your purview is you get to make the decision, versus if it's unfit, at the discretion of the building official, because we're dealing with more of a life safety issue than we are a historical significant issue. So all that is well outlined in the 5-page memo. It's just a matter of, I think I need to work with Bart and Susan to determine the best way to get that to you. We also want to be sensitive about, ex parte communication happening. I know there's been some emails about the Schofield building. I'm sensitive to that, so we want to make sure that we're not talking about that in the context of ex parte communication, and also the doctrine of fairness. And so all that's discussed in this memo as well. So I guess just the timing of when we want to do this.
And I would propose the sooner the better, to be honest, because even though I know you want it fresh in our minds, I think it will be. And I think we'd also have that document to refer back to. And then we also have you and the lawyer to help guide us. So I would personally, my vote would be to get that information up front and center, because it doesn't just relate to our discussions that we've recently had with the Schofield owner. It also can relate to many other things in our community. I think also we talked briefly I think it would be helpful if that presentation talked about demolition and buildings that are eligible but aren't listed. Because my understanding was that those still fall under the code that would require us to somehow have involvement. And I don't know what that is. So that was one thing I wanted us to understand the code in relation to those types of events. And so that would be my personal preference, would be the sooner the better. And also because we don't know if or when the Schofield property owner is going to come forward. And I would rather not delay, just pending on someone that may or may not come to us.
I just have one thing to say about the demolition committee to Jason. The county has reached out to our subcommittee to see if there's some documentation that they can have so that they can bring it forward. The first part, not the second part. The first part, they can bring it forward to their planner, building officials. And I didn't think we had worked out anything official, but I said Jason is the person who really knows what the process is that we're working on.
Yeah, I would just say if it fits into the schedule in October, great. Otherwise, I wouldn't push it past November. I would try to fit it into one of those next two meetings.
Yeah, so I'm happy to do it October or November. I guess I just would want to confirm with Trish's schedule, and I don't know if there's benefit to having, I guess it's city property, so we don't need to have necessarily the county attorney present, but just confirm schedules, and I guess we could talk about it at the next pre-agenda planning meeting in a couple weeks. Okay, great.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And I think also what would be helpful, sorry, one other thing to kind of add to that is what types of punishments property owners have for demolition by neglect, if there are any, and if they're not, if there has been any discussion about implementing something to that effect. And what burden of proof do property owners need to provide for that, you know, that the building really genuinely is hazard, rather than they have simply neglected the building and they are in fact the party at fault. So if you could help us understand that a little bit better, that would be wonderful. All right, looks like we are on to the next subcommittee, unless there's anything else. I think we're good. Okay, the next subcommittee is design review, our website. I'm going to turn that over to Susan. I know she had just a brief update for that. Sorry, Susan.
So we've been working on the nomination application, and we met a few weeks ago and reviewed that, and decided that we needed to look into it a little bit more closely before we sent that information out to the rest of the commissioners. And so we're going to continue working on that and reviewing it, and we'll send a version out for review once we've done some additional work on it.
Thank you. And then we heard from outreach earlier, but is there anything else you would like to mention? Oh, go ahead, Bart.
It just came to mind after when Elaine was speaking earlier. In my mind, the Leadership Clark County annual event is an outreach type of event, and that's happening on September 20th. And so Brad is supposed to get me more information within the next few days. I sent him an email to ask for that. And yeah, it's that. And so it's up at Pomeroy again, but they're going to format it differently than last year. So we're not stuck at the end like we were the last couple times. But it is an all-day commitment possibly. So when I know more, I'll send out a BCC email to everybody and see who can participate. But I've blocked out my calendar for that day. So I just wanted to say that as an outreach. And I think John had something to mention.
Well, I was just saying we already started kind of a little email thread on trying to figure this out. And for this next week, we'll set up some times. You know, I'm flexible-ish, but like, we can figure that out. But I'm excited for that work.
So you think should part-time all day?
Availability. Last year when I showed up maybe an hour before Julie did, and folks were out on field trips and things, it looked like something that we could participate in. It could be really interesting. So I'm going to get the full itinerary and see, because once you get up there, you've committed half your day anyway. So I feel like I may as well do the whole day and network. Well, I I I I grew up in Amboy. I know. I have seen the new roundabout. It's on the way to my parents' house. Yes. Anyway, so to be continued.
Okay, thank you. And then I know you already talked about the grants subcommittee, but there weren't any requests for volunteers. Do you need us to create a subcommittee for that? I would think so.
Yeah, we will need the usual 3 people in as soon as possible
So
after we
let's-
get the applications. So start looking at things in late September, early October. So
So
people can raise hands, they can
That's what my
voice.
question was. I was trying to remember the timing. So late September, early October.
Yeah, because we want to have it before the county commissioners in sometime in November, so we don't get behind like we did a couple years ago.
So essentially, the committee needs to be developed today, so that when he has the applications on the 18th, he can provide them, and I believe, right? So then October's
Yes,
meeting, yeah, so then October's meeting, it can be discussed and voted on, so.
I'll say I don't want to necessarily be a primary, but if like we need an extra person at the end, I can commit to that again.
Okay, you're an alternate. Yeah, I'm only expecting two or three this cycle based on interest. We do it, we've done it online. Yeah. Okay, so we have Andy and Morgan. That's fine. And then John is an alternate. And all right. Yeah.
I mean, if it's like sent to me and I could read it at my leisure and then get notes back like that I can commit to. Just my schedule.
I don't want you to overcommit, John. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Suggest that maybe, maybe if Heidi does want to be involved, she could read them from home, and it
Yeah.
could be totally something that she could participate in without leaving the comforts of her home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Smart.
Yeah, we haven't done any in-person meetings for that subcommittee since I've been here. We've done it all virtually, so.
Would you mind reaching out to Heidi just
Yeah,
to see if she's
we'll give
seeing Dan?
Heidi right of first refusal.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, excellent. All right, we are now at the end of our meeting. Now we will close out with the good of the order. Are there any good of the order comments for this evening? Yes.
And now we know why you don't want to do a lot of it.
All right, well, if there are no other comments, I will take a motion to adjourn. Excellent. And so all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.